Okay, so we are making our way through Unit 2 of Humble Yourself, the Way to Greatness. And in Unit 2, we're looking at the opposite side of things. We're looking at the way to destruction. The way to destruction is pride and selfish ambition. And we're about halfway through point C, which is talking about selfish ambition. We're going to look at examples of people in the scripture who chose the way of selfish ambition and what the results were in their life. Hopefully, this will be a deterrent to you as you think about selfish ambition in your own life, in your own heart, that you can look at these examples and figure out that it's not going to go well. You might get some short-term results in this world, but ultimately it will not go well for you. Most likely in this world, but also obviously in the world to come. Selfish ambition is not the way of God. So the first example that we're going to look at is a guy named Korah. Now, Korah was in the generation that came out of Egypt with Moses, under Moses' leadership. Now, Moses was the one appointed by God to lead the people, and Aaron, his brother, also was appointed by God to co-lead with Moses, because when God first called Moses, Moses kind of wimped out and said like, well, I don't know how to talk. And so God says like, all right, I'll send your brother and he can help you out. And, I'll give you the word and then Aaron can deliver it to Pharaoh and the people and all this stuff. So Moses and Aaron, Moses was the prophet, the one who was speaking to the Lord and had that face-to-face relationship with God. Aaron was the first appointed high priest. So Aaron also had a mediating role between God and the people. And they were from the tribe of Levi. So now Korah was also from the tribe of Levi, and that's going to come up in the context of the story. But Korah had selfish ambition. It wasn't enough for him to be part of the tribe of Levi that was selected to draw near to God and serve in the tabernacle. He wanted to be the one in charge. So Korah gathered together a group of people to unite in rebellion against the leadership of Moses and Aaron. So let's take a look. The scriptures are in your study guide. We're going to go through them pretty quickly, but you can also look. This is in Numbers chapter 16, this story. That's when this story takes place. So Numbers chapter 16, starting with verse 1. Now Korah, the son of Izhar, son of Kohath, son of Levi, and Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and On, the son of Peleth, sons of Reuben, so that's just giving you some tribal background, took men, and they rose up before Moses with a number of the people of Israel, 250 chiefs of the congregation, chosen from the assembly as well-known men. So Korah, he wanted to start a rebellion, and so he deliberately chose people. He took people from the congregation of the people of Israel, but he chose 250 chiefs, people who were in leadership positions, people who were in positions of authority over other people. Korah was like, I'm no fool. I got to get people with some influence to be on my side. That's the only way that this thing is actually going to happen. I don't want some, little person. I need people who actually have some influence. That is like sign number one of selfish ambition. When you're selfishly ambitious, you don't want to spend time with the little people. You only want to spend time with people that you think are important because you think that their importance makes you important or that you're legitimized by their significance. It's all a big mess. See, because Jesus came and he's the King of Kings, but he chose to hang out with the people that nobody else wanted to hang out with because they were so insignificant that, with people who were selfishly ambitious like Korah, who were only looking for leaders and chiefs and, people with influence, Jesus didn't go for those people. Jesus came for the people that nobody else was targeting because nobody else really wanted them. Anyway, that's a whole tangent, but let's take a look at Korah's selfish ambition. So he took well-known men. They assembled themselves together against Moses and against Aaron. and said to them, "You have gone too far, for all in the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Why then do you exalt yourselves above the assembly of the Lord?" So, something interesting that I have discovered is that whenever someone is in selfish ambition or false accusation, they usually are accusing someone else of doing exactly the very thing that they themselves are doing. This is an example of that. Korah, who is exalting himself, is accusing Moses of exalting himself. Now, Moses was not exalting himself. Moses was out tending sheep and he saw a bush that was on fire but didn't get consumed. And this was the call of God. God's like, yeah, take off your shoes. You're on holy ground. I'm sending you to be the leader of my people. And by the way, Moses had known about this call upon his life for 40 years already. It just the first time that he tried to do it in his own strength, it didn't really go so well for him. So Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness tending sheep until he was humble enough for God to use. But it was God that appointed Moses as the leader of the people. Moses did not exalt himself over the people. God exalted Moses in the sight of the people. And God worked many great wonders and signs with Moses as the leader of the people. It was Korah who was exalting himself over the people. And Korah, remember, when we talked about selfish ambition, we used the word electioneering, right? Like someone running for political office. That's what Korah did. Korah ran for political office. Korah electioneered. He gathered people together to be under him and on his side in opposition to Moses and Aaron's leadership of the people. So Moses, he has a response. We're going to jump down to verse 8. Moses said to Korah, "Hear now, you sons of Levi. Is it too small a thing for you that the God of Israel has separated you from the congregation of Israel to bring you near to himself, to do service in the tabernacle of the Lord, and to stand before the congregation to minister to them?" I mean, so this is the thing. They were Levites, the tribe of Levi. They were all selected to do service to the Lord. This was a great honor, but it wasn't enough. They wanted more. Korah, he wanted more. His followers wanted more. They're saying, hey, look, all of us are holy. All of us are set apart. All of us are Israel. All of us, but Moses is saying, you're Levites. You've already been given a special position and you want more? So he goes on, and that you have been brought near to him and all your brothers and the sons of Levi with you, and you would seek the priesthood also? So it's not enough for you that you get to be near God and serve the people for God? You want the priesthood? You want it all? You want all the power? Therefore, it is against the Lord that you and all your company have gathered together. What is Aaron that you grumble against him? God is the one who selected Aaron to be the high priest. But Moses is like, Aaron is just another guy that God chose. Like, why are you picking a fight with Aaron? Aaron's doing the best he can to serve God and obey all the commandments, and especially all the purity rules for the high priest, right? But they wanted more. They wanted the top position. They wanted to be like God to the congregation. So it goes on. We're going to jump to verse 12. Moses sent to Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and they said, "We will not come. Is it a small thing that you have brought us up out of the land flowing with milk and honey?" So hold on, pause. They're now saying, this is Dathan and Abiram, who are not Levites, right? So Moses said to Korah, you're Levites, now you want the priesthood also. So he's speaking now to the ones who are not Levites. They are Israelites, but they're not Levites. And they're saying, look, you were supposed to bring us into the land flowing with milk and honey. But what they're saying is, you brought us out of the land flowing with milk and honey. They're saying that they're saying that the land of their slavery was the land of milk and honey. No. Okay, no. Slavery is not milk and honey. And they go on, you brought us out of the land of milk and honey to kill us in the wilderness, that you might also make yourself a prince over us. So they also are accusing Moses of exalting himself, making himself king over Israel, which is not what Moses did at all. God was king over Israel. Moses was the mediator between God and the people. And quite frankly, at this point, there are a couple of key events that have happened. Number one, God invited the whole congregation to go up to the mountain to be in his presence with him at Sinai. But the people, when God spoke the 10 commandments to them, this is in Exodus chapter 19 and 20, when the people heard the voice of God and saw the thunder and the trumpet blast, they were too terrified. So they were like, nah, we don't want to go. We don't want to draw near to God. So it was only Moses that drew near to God, because all the people said, we don't want to go near to God because we're going to die if we enter into his presence. He's too scary for us. Instead, you go and speak to God for us and just come back and tell us what he said. So they're forgetting, they have completely forgotten the Sinai experience, right? Of what happened there and how they had in their own free will decided not to draw near to God. And now they're accusing Moses of appointing himself to that position, when really it was the people who put him in that position. They go on. Moreover, you have not brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey, nor given us an inheritance of fields and vineyards. That's what they were promised by God. This is what the promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was. And when Moses came to Egypt to speak to the people of Israel who were slaves, he said, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob spoke to me. It's time for us to go receive the thing that God promised to them, which is the land that's going to flow with milk and honey. And you'll have your own field and your own vineyard. It's going to be great. So they're like, yay, we're leaving Egypt. We're leaving slavery. We're all going to get fields and vineyards. But by this point, that hasn't happened. That hasn't happened. Why hasn't it happened? Well, if you're keeping track, Numbers 16 is after Numbers 13 and 14. Okay, just saying, you probably figured that out. But what's significant about that? Numbers 13 and 14 is the story of the spies who were sent from the wilderness into the promised land, into the land flowing with milk and honey, into the land where they brought back a cluster of grapes and they were as big as their head. Okay, it's a good land and it's flowing with abounding prosperity. And this was the promise of what God said he was going to give them. But what happened? These people, the people of Israel, they did not believe that God was able to give it to them. 10 of the spies came back and said, it's too terrifying. The people are giants. We're going to die. No, let's not go, right? It's a good land, but no, it's too scary. These giant people are going to kill us. We look like grasshoppers before them. And so now this is after that. This is when God said, okay, you don't believe that I'm able to do it, even though you saw that I brought you out of Egypt through the parted waters of the Red Sea. So therefore, this generation, this entire generation, none of you are going to enter into the promised land. You're going to die here in the wilderness. So these people who are now accusing Moses of not bringing them into the land flowing with milk and honey, they were the same ones who didn't believe God. They were the same ones who heard that the penalty for their unbelief was that they were going to die in the wilderness. So you can start to see, and this goes back, we talked previously about Romans 1 and how God, if you want to do it your own way, you want to exalt yourself, you want to deny God, God will turn you over to your own selfish desire. He will turn you over to yourself. But what happens in that is that your thinking becomes all kinds of messed up, futile thinking. Things don't make sense anymore. You're no longer rooted in the truth. And ultimately, you wind up with a debased mind. So you start forgetting how things actually went. You start not even thinking that they're true anymore. The facts are completely just swept away. I don't care about the facts. What I want to be true is the only thing that I'm going to live by, right? Their perspective had become so distorted by their own stubborn refusal to heed the instructions of the servant of God, who was Moses. The more they rebelled against God, the more distorted their perspective became. They're calling Egypt the land of slavery. They're calling Egypt the land of milk and honey. They're raging against the guy who they were too afraid to approach God, so they sent him instead, and they're saying, now you exalted yourself over us. And they're accusing Moses of not bringing them in when Moses wanted to believe the two spies that brought back a good report, but it was the people. You start to see it gets all distorted. So this is where it wound up going. You can read the whole chapter for yourself, but this was the ultimate punishment for these actions. Numbers 16, starting with verse 24, say to the congregation, this is Moses speaking, get away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Verse 32, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up with their households and all the people who belonged to Korah and all their goods. Whoa, okay, that might be something that only God can do. All right, this is the end result of selfish ambition. You're going down. Now, I'm not saying the earth is going to open up and swallow you up, but someday there will be a day of judgment, and you don't want to be on the side of the people who have rebelled against God and rebelled against his anointed leader. Who is that anointed leader in our day in the new covenant? It is Jesus. If you are in rebellion against God's anointed leader, Jesus, then you will face judgment like selfishly ambitious Korah. The verse continues, so they and all that belonged to them went down alive into Sheol, the place of the dead, alive into the grave. God opened up a grave in the earth, and the earth closed over them, and they perished from the midst of the assembly. So God, in a moment's time, he separated the people who were not rebellious from the people who were selfishly ambitious and exalting themselves. So another example of this is David's son, Absalom. So this is many years later in the history of Israel. King David, the same David who conquered Goliath and cut off his head and did it in the name of the Lord, right? That same David, he had a son named Absalom. And Absalom wanted to be king. And this was even during the reign of David. So Absalom, he also electioneered, he gathered people together, he ran a campaign for himself to capture the hearts of the people, to make himself king and depose David, his own father and the great king of Israel, to usurp David's power and authority and the throne of the kingdom of Israel. So let's take a look at the story with Absalom. This is from 2 Samuel, and this is chapters 15 and 16. In there, you can read these chapters for yourself. But let's start with 2 Samuel chapter 15, verse 1. After this, Absalom got himself a chariot and horses and 50 men to run before him. So you see, he's gathering together chariot and horses. That's military strength. So he's building his own arsenal. He's building his own power, his own might. He's building his own strength to dominate other people. And he gathers some people to run before him to make himself look even more powerful, like he has a following. And Absalom used to rise early and stand beside the way of the gate. And when any man had a dispute to come before the king for judgment, Absalom would call to him and say, "Hey, from what city are you?" And he said, Your servant is of such and such tribe in Israel." And Absalom would say to him, "See, your claims are good and right." He's like, "Yeah, you got a good case there. See, Absalom is stealing the hearts of the people." Absalom would say, "Your claims are good and right, but there is no man designated by the king to hear you. So your claim, hey, you got a good case there, but the king, he's not going to hear your case. The king's not going to give you justice. Yeah, he doesn't have enough people to listen to cases like that, but yeah." So Absalom continues. Then Absalom would say, "Oh, that I were judge in the land." Now remember, in times prior of Israel's history, they didn't have kings. They had what were called judges. Oh, that I were the ruler. Oh, that I were the one dispensing the justice among the people, right? Oh, that I were the leader. Then every man with a dispute or cause could come to me, and I would give him justice. Man, if only I were king, aside, not my father, not David. If I were king, your claim, you've got a good case there. I would give you justice, but you're not going to get it from the current king. And so Absalom continues, whenever a man came near to pay homage to him, he would put out his hand and take hold of him and kiss him. Thus Absalom did to all Israel who came to the king for judgment. So Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel, right? So Absalom intercepted people who were on their way to the courts of David, and he electioneered, put himself forward, exalted himself to steal the hearts of the people away from God's anointed king. So the story continues, 2 Samuel 15, starting with verse 10. But Absalom sent secret messengers throughout all the tribes of Israel. As soon as you hear the sound of the trumpet, then say, Absalom is king at Hebron. With Absalom went 200 men from Jerusalem who were invited guests. They went in their innocence, knowing nothing. So Absalom used deception and intrigue to gather people. That we know from the book of Daniel is a sign of the Antichrist. That's the sign of a wicked and evil ruler using deception and intrigue, right? Deception and intrigue. Absalom deceived people. They were innocent. They knew nothing about what Absalom was doing, but they followed along because they were invited to this great big feast that Absalom was throwing for himself. He was exalting himself. While Absalom was offering the sacrifices, he sent for Ahithophel, the Gileonite, David's counselor from his city Gilo. And the conspiracy grew strong, and the people with Absalom kept increasing. So the people were believing that Absalom was being made king. So they start following Absalom. By this point, King David, he's getting older, and so they might just be buying into that, okay, maybe Absalom is king now. So they all start following Absalom. And remember, their hearts have been stolen by him. They believe that Absalom is going to fight for their cause, fight for their claim, give them the justice, give them the what they think is rightfully theirs. And messengers came to David, saying, the hearts of the men of Israel have gone after Absalom. Then David said to all his servants who were with him at Jerusalem, arise and let us flee, or else there will be no escape for us from Absalom. Go quickly, lest he overtake us quickly and bring down ruin on us and strike the city with the edge of the sword. So aside from Absalom manipulating all the people, look at the contrast of David. David, for the good of the people, so that Absalom would not bring war and the sword to the city of unsuspecting, innocent people. David was like, you know what? Let me not exalt myself. If God wants me to remain king, God will see to it that I remain king. But for the sake of the people not having the sword come against them, let's flee. Let's leave. Let's not fight this. Don't resist the evil person, would be the way that Jesus would say it. So Absalom is manipulating, electioneering. David is humbling himself. The story goes on a little bit later, verse 20. Absalom said to Ahithophel, give your counsel, what shall we do? And Ahithophel said to Absalom, go into your father's concubines, whom he has left to keep the house, and all Israel will hear that you have made yourself a stench to your father, and the hands of all who are with you will be strengthened. So this would be the ultimate act of humiliation against David. So Absalom, he took all of David's concubines and had sex with them on public display. This was his act of usurping the power, the authority, and the glory of the kingship away from his father David. And so the people will hear, oh, okay, so Absalom, he has really, like, David is left, and Absalom is now totally exalting himself, totally usurping the throne of David. He is a stench in the nostrils of David right now. But the people who are on Team Absalom saying, oh, yeah, this is great because Absalom's on my side, so I'm going to be on his side. All of that is also selfish ambition, but their hands will be strengthened by this act of defiance. As Absalom defies David and takes over his concubines, the people who are in rebellion with Absalom will be like, yeah, look at us conquer. We're taking over the throne. This is awesome. Well, it's not so awesome. So they pitched a tent for Absalom on the roof, and Absalom went into his father's concubines in the sight of all Israel. Now, you have to understand the way that Jerusalem is laid out. You can be on a hill surrounding the center of the city, and everything is very clearly visible. It's very easy to see. And so this was done on public display. Absalom went in to his father's concubines in the sight of all Israel. All Israel was watching this happen. Now, that's pretty gross, but it's still true. And if you've ever been to Jerusalem, you understand that it's completely possible for this, visual effect to take place. Now, in those days, the counsel that Ahithophel gave was as if one consulted the word of God. So was all the counsel of Ahithophel esteemed, both by David and by Absalom. So Absalom took counsel for the exaltation of himself in triumph over David in the sight of all the people. Ahithophel was known for giving counsel that was like the counsel of God. And this was his ultimate act of usurping the throne of David. Well, here's how it went in the end for Absalom. His men went out looking for David. David and his men had fled the city. They had crossed over the Kidron Valley and hidden themselves. And Absalom took counsel and pursued after his father to find him and bring him probably and ultimately to death so that Absalom could have the throne for himself. But here's the thing. Absalom, in addition to his electioneering or his selfish ambition, Absalom had a great head of hair. Absalom's hair was beautiful and long and thick and weighty. And, so he took great pride in his hair. I know that sounds silly, but he did. He thought, well, I've got great hair. He could grow his hair long. He could grow his hair thick. It was great head of hair. But in his death, the very thing that he took such pride in was his literal downfall. Absalom was riding on his horse under a tree, and the tree branches caught in his hair. His hair that was so thick and so strong and so long, the tree caught Absalom's hair in its branches. And as the horse kept on walking, Absalom, by his hair, remained hanging by the tree. So this is the result. You take great pride in something, you exalt yourself, and that very thing that you take such pride in will be the end of you. He was hanged by the very hair that he exalted himself by, that he took such great pride in. So the end did not go well for Absalom. David did not kill him. David was not even happy about learning that Absalom had been killed. But Absalom was killed by his own pride and selfish ambition.